Today we're going to have a quick look at Spotify versus YouTube and what's better for growing your music artist fan base. So essentially we're looking at audio versus video. So both these platforms are great and not one is going to be better than the other for everything. This is not a comparison of the platforms necessarily, but more a look at what's the pros and cons for your music brand and for growing your fan base. Which one would you get more out of, YouTube or Spotify? That's what we're going to talk about. Hey, I'm Craig from the Dot of That Studio, and we're talking about going from musician to artist. So today I want to have a look at the two kind of main players in the content-based platforms. So YouTube and Spotify. That's where we can kind of have our content up there and have it last for a long time. Different to Facebook and Instagram where you post something and then it's really hard to find it again later. These are kind of platforms where we can be growing our fan base because our stuff can be up there and searchable. So someone who can find us can go back and look at where we were 12 months ago, 5 years ago, etc. So I want to look at in context of how will it grow your fan base the best, because we often think we've got to be doing everything. We need fingers in all of the pies, and perhaps there's an element of that, but maybe there'd be one that would just be easier for you to dive fully into and then not stress out about not doing enough across all of them. Let's just do one thing really, really well. So one thing to think about and kind of remember when we're looking at this is that it is a slow burn regardless of what you want to do. If you want to make some quick money for the weekend, chucking something on Spotify or YouTube is not the way to go. This is a slow burn. You should probably be looking at 3 to 5 years kind of in the future before this is really going to start working from you from a monetization perspective. But as far as building audience and growing our music brand, it's great to do that straight away. So we want to jump into that, but we want to do it right. So I want to look at three main things and just do a bit of a comparison between the two of those. The first one is your engagement level. The second one is the actual content available on the platform. And the third one is the search ability. So this first one, the engagement level, they're really, really different. So Spotify, as we know, it's just audio. So we can put that on in the background and be able to consume it without being completely devoted to it. So this is really, really good in the office or at the gym or walking the dog or something like that where you don't have to fully concentrate on it. You can be doing something else, but still listening and still engaging with it whilst being able to go on with your life. And that's a really, really powerful thing. And it's different from YouTube where you kind of have to stop and watch it. So something that'll happen often with YouTube is you'll go, oh, I'll look at that later. That looks really interesting. And you try and remember to look at it later. And maybe your audience is going, oh, that looks great. I'll check that out later. And maybe they never do. And that's the danger. There's so many videos I've seen up going, oh, that looks really cool. I'll check that out later, but I never get to it. The thing with Spotify is you can just put it on now and listen to it now. Now, the con of that is that maybe you could consume a lot of music and not really ever take notice of what it is. So you might listen to a really great song, enjoy it in that moment, but you don't know it, you haven't engaged with it enough to be able to remember who that artist is and go back to them. Whereas if you're watching something on YouTube and an artist comes up, you'll be able to engage with it and go, yeah. And because you've engaged a couple of different senses to see that, you're going to be able to remember that and engage with it a lot more. So pros and cons of kind of this amount of engagement they're very different. You can do it in the background, which is really great, but you have a higher level of engagement if you're on YouTube. The second thing is the content that you can put on this. I think YouTube really wins here because you can put on your music video, but then you can also put on a lyric video. You can also put on an acoustic playthrough. You can also put on just audio only where you might have a static image. So you can the same song you can kind of recycle 3 or 4 times to kind of grow your potential reach, I guess. But then you could also kind of go into or maybe you could do an interview about your song, or maybe you could do a day in the life of, and you can talk about, I don't know, what you feed your dog or whatever. So there's a lot of different sort of content you can put on that's still all about you as an artist, you about music, but you don't have to have a polished single to do that. Whereas Spotify is very much about polished singles. And I mean, you don't even see many demos or kind of less than perfect music on your Spotify. Usually it's reserved for your singles or your albums or the stuff that you really want to push out and release. So it can kind of be a little bit limiting. And I think it's almost annoying when you have lots of different versions on there. Sometimes when I'm looking up a song, I don't want to have to search through the actual version I'm looking for. Oh, that's the single, that's the featuring that's the remix version, that's the live version. I want to be able to just know what song it is. And I guess there's a little bit of that from YouTube as well. You search it up and you got to flick through the thumbnails to find the actual one you're looking for. But I guess what I'm saying is Spotify is more geared towards the song, the polished song, and that's kind of what it's all about. Whereas YouTube is great for that as well, but there's a lot more room to kind of do more things with that. Is one better than the other? Not necessarily. Maybe it's all about music and you don't want to have to go through all the effort and all the creativity to come up with a bunch of extra things to fill up your YouTube channel. You just want your music out there. Well, maybe Spotify is going to be great for you. You can get rid of all the fluff and just concentrate on the music. The third thing is your searchability. Now, this is quite different for both of them because Spotify is going to be searching off your music and the mood of your music and the genre of your music. So without anybody physically typing in your name, you might be acoustic chill or something like that. So you could end up in an acoustic chill playlist. Or when someone's finished listening to another acoustic chill song, Spotify might recommend your music. So you can be kind of found because of what your music is, which I think is kind of cool. So your vibe, Spotify is going to analyze that and then come up with an audience or kind of put you in front of an audience that appreciates that music. So that searchability is kind of there within genres, although it's not text. So it's really hard to type up your name unless they know your name. Does that make sense? So if you're like, for me, Craig Honeysett, someone have to type in Craig Honeysett to find me if they did that via text, but they could type in my genre of music and they could find me like that. So there's that searchability there, which is kind of good that it's genre. It's kind of hard that it's not so much text. That's quite difficult. Whereas YouTube's all text. So YouTube is Google. So it is essentially a search engine. So if you would type in whatever, your video could end up there depending on how you title your video. So for Spotify, you're going to title your song, whatever your song's called, and then your artist name. Whereas if you're on YouTube, you could type in something like your song name, Killer Guitar Solo by the artist, and that could be your title. Which means if someone who's searching for killer guitar solos or they've just watched someone else do a killer guitar solo, YouTube might think, oh, here's another video like that. So with text, you can kind of be more specific about what you're looking for and you might end up in a search that way. You could title your video anything you want really, and then just in brackets, the name of the song. So you've got that text search through Google, through that massive search engine. The other thing that you can do, and I do this all the time with my cover videos, is you name the song the artist. So I just released one, a Billie Eilish cover. So I titled my video Billie Eilish, the name of the song, cover by Craig Honeysett. So that means anyone who's searching for Billie Eilish could come across my music. So the searchability for that is really, really powerful within YouTube, but it's harder than just to write, I want some acoustic chill into YouTube and find that. It's kind of pros and cons of the searchability. Both have an algorithm, so both are based on what the user wants, and those platforms figuring out based on a bunch of data what you're into, and they try to dish you up that thing, but they kind of go about it in a different way. So there's 3 quick things to think about when you're trying to work out whether you want to do YouTube or Spotify, and there is no reason why you can't do both. And maybe you can come up with the same piece of content and just put that across both. You can record a polished single and then you can put that up on YouTube as a static image, or you can do a full-fledged music video and kind of make them work together. You could do whatever you want. Maybe if you just did an acoustic cover of YouTube, it went really, really well, maybe you could just put that audio onto Spotify. So there's no reason why you can't use both, but hopefully you've been able to kind of think about which one could I actually chase, or maybe think, you know what, I don't have the time for YouTube, or I don't have the expertise to make a polished single for Spotify. So whichever way, you can kind of find your audience and make sure you're just doing something that's true to you to grow your audience. I actually put together a longer breakdown of these 2 platforms on my podcast this week. So if you think that would be helpful, you can search From Musician to Artist on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like if you found it helpful at all. Leave me a comment if there's something I missed. Leave me a comment of what you've found better, whether it's Spotify or YouTube. What have you found success in as a music artist? I'd really love to hear that. Hey, that's about all from me. Make some music this week and we'll talk again soon.